And as I'm going through college, I'm trying to figure out what the heck do I want to do with my life. I worked out today, and I already showed the Air Force that I'm alive today. Well, time to play video games. And there was like a site that had rankings for every individual hero. And for the hero that I was playing, I was like number 3 in the world. Whether it was from teaching tennis, to teaching pilots, to teaching, people how to play Warzone, it's always been about giving back.
Just to intro the podcast, obviously we've got yourself, IceMan Isaac, ex-pilot in the Air Force, which I knew, but I didn't really dive into it until we were doing research for this podcast. I was like, the more I was looking, I was like, this is actually such a cool story that I'm looking to get into. So thank you very much for coming on the show.
Glad to be here.
The SCUF podcast. We want to kind of go into the origin stories of all the different SCUF creators. And you are the second guest. We're here in the Optic HQ. They've very kindly given us some production space. So thank you to Optic, whichever cam we're looking in. I suppose let's just kind of get into it. The way I like to start these is like, let's just roll it right the way back to the start. Who IceMan Isaac was as a young man. Before it was IceMan Isaac, I imagine, when it was just Isaac.
Well, actually, that's where the name comes from. A lot of people ask me if I got my name from, obviously, the origins of the Air Force, and you say, ex-pilot, and this is weird for me because this is actually my first interview, podcast, anything post-Air Force. Ever since Air Force, I've been all focused on Warzone 2, Modern Warfare 2, and to kind of take that back and hear you say X, I'm like, oh, that's weird, because I've been on the double-time grind for so long. But yeah, Iceman was a nickname I've had since I was a kid. For as long as I remember, my dad would call me it. All the neighbor kids would call me it growing up. I had no idea what Top Gun was until I was like 13, 14. But I guess bright blonde hair, blue-eyed kid, Val Kilmer, Iceman, that all kind of brings it together.
It fits. So what are the odds of that then? You actually become a pilot and a pilot instructor.
Yeah. It all worked out. It all worked out pretty good. Maybe it was a script they were trying to write for me early on, Yeah. But no, I've been a gamer since day one. I remember it was like my 3rd birthday party. My cousin Daryl, who's like 10, 15 years older than me, got me like an Elmo doll, and I was furious. It was like my 4th or 5th birthday or something. But I'm like, I play N64. Like, I don't want an Elmo doll. I was like super obsessed with Diddy Kong Racing at the time or something. And he gave me an Elmo doll. And like just my entire childhood, I've been obsessed with gaming.
That's funny you say Diddy Kong Racing. That was the first video game I ever played. And for me, Diddy Kong Racing was better than Mario Kart 64.
Mario Kart, yeah.
It just was. I don't know. I used to always play the Conker as well, the squirrel. Fly around. It was good. It was that. GoldenEye. Obviously. And then
Classic.
Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time, which I still to this day is my favorite game, and I think it's the best game ever.
So I never got big on the Zelda vibe until later on. I realized how much I missed out on it. I think I was too like ADHD as a kid. I had to be moving, and so like to go through and do this storyline and save the princess, I played Super Smash Brothers.
Okay.
I was grinding Super Smash Brothers. And I thought I was good until I went to college and I was playing, in my dorm room, and I realized there are levels to fighting games.
Yeah,
I was humbled very quickly.
Yeah, they have like full platform controllers. I was out in the Philippines visiting some gaming companies out there, and some of the guys would bring in their like joystick fighter things for Smash. It's like, that's too hardcore for me.
I'm not that guy.
No, me neither. Definitely not. I was, like I say, Zelda or GoldenEye. GoldenEye was the first-person shooter I played, and I absolutely loved it. It was serious aim assist on that though. Especially compared to now.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you didn't even have 2 joysticks back then. I mean, you were using the what was the
C-sticks.
The C-sticks, yeah.
That controller was mental. The N64, you had 3 ways to hold it, right? Because it's like the 3. It was almost like an M shape. So you could hold it that way, hold it that way, hold it.
I don't know what they were thinking.
I don't either. It's like, let's just make it for as many games as we possibly can and weave it in. I don't know. We'll see. So you were gaming all the way through your childhood then, right?
Yeah. My parents were really big on always wanting me to be active, always wanting me to stay healthy, and always wanting me to, like, grades came first, right? So gaming was my passion, but that was always the first thing. If I was slipping up on grades, I was grounded. Or I always had to be involved in a sport of something, or like music or something, and, making sure I am diverse as a human being. But gaming was always held over my head.
And was the punishment you got your console removed?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I would always do that, but I know where they hide it. So I just wait until they've gone to bed, and I'll go and get it back out and be like, yeah, I'm gaming again. No chance. My parents were a special type of strict. I'll leave it at that. But I mean, even up to the days when I was, in high school,
they were smart enough that, my my parents run an event management company together. My dad handles all the servers and the computer side of things. So he would just literally shut off my ports. Right. So he was like, cool. Like, I know you want to play Halo 2, but you're grounded. And he would just shut off the port in my room.
Oh, he's too intelligent then.
Yeah.
That's tough.
I feel screwed. Really
bad. That's such a smart way of grounding your child as well. It's like there's no get around from this.
Yeah. Unless I played campaign or something, but I wouldn't risk trying to stay up and yeah.
No, that makes sense. So from there, your parents, like you said, they were in event management. You went through high school and you were playing sports as well as gaming.
Yep.
Were you always good at sports? Because I know you became a tennis coach at one point.
Yeah, so I played soccer my entire life growing up, and I was good. Like, I was really fast, I was pretty athletic, and I was kind of like the jack of all trades, ace of none. Like, I wasn't like the best player in the world by any means. And a lot of it was I was a super late bloomer. Like, in 8th grade, I was 4'8". I was like the shortest guy in 8th grade besides one other person. I was tiny. And then I hit a crazy growth spurt. And so I'm out there, I'm trying to play soccer, and I would do well. I was like the little kid that could use his body weight better, and I would always get away with like really rough plays because they're like, there's no way you got trucked by that kid. Yeah. But I mean, I by no means was the best. And in 9th grade, played soccer in the fall. I decided to try out for tennis in the spring, just for kicks, because I wanted something to do, and fell in love with the sport. Absolutely fell in love with the sport. And also, I was playing soccer, and it's a whole bunch of young kids. Everyone's just bickering about, like, we lost because of this person, we lost because of this, and no one takes responsibility. So I'm like, tennis, this is kind of nice. It's all on me. There's no blaming anyone. Like, if I suck, I suck.
Yeah, and at that age as well, the worst kid always goes in goal, and it always sparks so many arguments. And then forget, no one wanted to be in goal at that age. What position did you play, actually?
Center mid.
Okay.
Yeah.
So controlling the game as well.
Yeah, well, it was like defensive mid. So
Okay.
I wasn't like the attacking, but I was more on the defense side, but kind of facilitating things, yeah.
Okay, so you're still trying to command it. It makes sense then, going into tennis, it's like, right, this is just on me.
Yeah, it's really, really nice. Fell in love with the sport. Like I said, hadn't touched a racket. I got the number 24 spot on our ladder, which is the last person before you got cut. So otherwise, I wouldn't have made the team. Ended up falling in love with the sport, quit soccer altogether, and would be riding my bike back and forth to a local country club and would work and help out with the clinics. Like, I would be, feeding balls during the clinics, and then they would let me play in their, aspiring collegiate program, basically. So I worked to play for free or discounted for their other programs because, like, that's a country club sport. Like, that's as expensive to play tennis. Yeah. On top of buying your rackets and your strings and the private lessons, like, I didn't have it like that. And so I just started grinding for there, riding my bike back and forth. And, yeah, it was a cool sport because I could control everything, right, for the most part. So if my serve sucked, I could go out with a hopper of balls and hit serves for 3 hours. And that's how I ended up with one of the best serves all the way up from when I was playing college. Like, that was the strength of my game because I know that is the one part of the game that I can control no matter what.
So it's interesting you say that. I know there's a theme that we'll keep getting through here is that ended up where you were an instructor. You do seem like you're quite a competitive individual.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And was it just you wanted to beat other people with it, or you just wanted to better yourself and go through it that way?
I just like the journey.
Okay.
Yeah, I never had like a pride about it. I knew I was never going to be the best. I ended up, I played Division II college, but I never had this aspiration that I was going to be the D1 or I was going to be the best player. Like, there were people that were born with a trust fund and a racket in their hand. Like, I'm getting smoked. I'm not that guy. But I know that I can put in more hours than other people, and I can see my improvement of someone who 6 months ago would wipe the court with me, and now all of a sudden, I took a set off him, or now all of a sudden I'm beating him, and just seeing that progression of, like, who the heck is this Isaac guy, that we were laughing at, and all of a sudden he's a demon. Yeah. And I just really enjoy the journey of putting my mind to something and getting better at it.
Love it. And then from an instructor's perspective, I know you've spoken on the fact that you ended up becoming a tennis instructor. I want to get to the point. So between there, when you were teaching tennis, you eventually started teaching people how to fly planes in the Air Force. Bridge that gap for me. How did that transition happen?
Yeah, so I got opportunity to play for college tennis. Exact same scenario. Very bottom of the ladder. Worst person on the team. By the time I got to my senior year, I was playing on the number 2 on the singles ladder and number 1 on the doubles ladder. And so it's just this progression of getting better and better and better. And as I'm going through college, I'm trying to figure out what the heck do I want to do with my life, right? I had this existential crisis of, someday I'm going to die, I'm going to be put in the dirt, and then everyone's going to forget about me. And my time on this earth is going to be meaningless, and and I say all this now when I realize like the most important things in your life are the people that are closest to you and the people that you influence on a daily basis, your family and your friends. I no longer have that crisis. But at the time, I had to figure out what the heck am I going to do with my life to have an impact. And I went to college. I was triple majored: business, political science, international relations, and playing tennis. And I was trying to figure out what the heck do I want to do with my life. Eventually decided I didn't want to do business. I'm like, this isn't for me. Like I interned at like an investing firm, and I'm like, it's cool, but it doesn't tug at my heartstrings. I have to do this. I was also studying Arabic and Spanish, and I had a real passion for foreign languages. And I started to realize like, about all these conflicts and all these misconceptions that are happening in international conflict, largely as a result of not understanding other cultures and their history, and how the modern geopolitics that we have today has nothing to do with the intricacies of the tribal relations and the history of it, without getting into the whole separate
you
sidebar.
Really went on changing the world there.
Yeah, well, that was what really like pulled at my heart. Like, I want to learn about other cultures. I want to learn, about conflict and what we're doing and how we can prevent it, and possibly get involved in some form of diplomacy. I have a passion for other cultures and their histories and their people. And after speaking with some mentors, like the very best way you can do that is if you join the military. Not only will that give you a security clearance, right. It'll give you an opportunity to travel, and it'll give you the connections that if someday you want to influence the world in that way through diplomacy, you have that experience and that trust. And so that's where, in my junior year of college, I basically decided I want to join the military. Right? I want to give back to the country that's given me so many things, and I want to eventually be able to travel the world, learn more about people, their cultures, and like war is hell. Like I don't, there is this macho man, and there's this incredible aspect of being a warrior, of being a member of the service, but like I don't want that. Yeah. I mean, the world needs it at times, but like I don't want that. So I really had a passion for.
You wanted the byproduct of that, essentially. Like you wanted to give back to the country. You wanted to get that clearance as well that you could get through the military. That makes total sense, but you don't want like the direct action of going to war. Is that what you're saying?
Well, I mean, I understand that sometimes like war is necessary. Like war makes peace in a lot of ways, but it was just that thing where I didn't join the military for the sake of wanting to be involved in the action. Yeah. I understand sometimes that is necessary for not only protection of our own country, but protections of others and those who aren't as fortunate. But it wasn't like an aggressive, I need to prove myself as a man and join the military type of macho vibe.
Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So what was that process like? I know obviously you ended up in the Air Force, but did you know off the gate, it's like, I'm going to go into the Air Force, or did you have to...
I had some family history. My grandparents were in the Air Force. Cool. My older sister was in the Air Force as well when I joined, so I had kind of that culture of it as well. Had no passion for aviation. Never flew a plane before in my life. When you join the Air Force, you have to take like a 5-hour-long test. You also have to take like a test, and this is I think the coolest thing for gamers. It's called the TBAS, the Test of Basic Aviation Skills. And what it is it's basically a complex memorization and multitasking. Okay. So there's a whole bunch of different parts to it. Some of it's pretty easy, like what we would call like tracking, right? So you've got the joystick, and you have to manipulate the joystick vertically to keep it online with something. So you're like tracking something vertically in the exact same way you'd keep the flight level. And then you'd have to do it horizontally, and then you'd have to do it on 2 axes at once. And then you'd have to do it with your rudder pedals as well. And so you're tracking like 3 different balls at the same time using these different inputs. And then there's another part of the test where you have a math equation going on up here. There's numbers you have to memorize going on over here. There's a little quadrant down here that's like a little buzzer beater that's going down, and you constantly have to make sure it doesn't fall too far. And then you also have a headset on that's calling out for your call sign. So like if you're, Tiger 71 is your call sign, they would tell you a certain radial that you need to turn to. So you're doing all these math equations, all these memorization things, and you have all these different call signs going on in your head. Hey, Panda 69, turn to radial 270, and you're like listening for all these things that are going on while managing all these things, and all of a sudden you hear like Tiger 71, turn to radial 314, and then you're, and so it's so much fun. Like I crushed that test. Never did anything in aviation in my life, but it's like, that's what I was built for. That's what I did my entire childhood. I'm out here trying to hit, BXRs on Halo 2 while I got someone calming that someone's flanking behind me. Like that. That was so much fun for me.
That's sick. It's the same now with Warzone though. Like when you were running through that, I was like, right, you got teammates on the comms. You got the zone coming in. You got your loadout drop that's just land that you need to ping and know where it is. You're getting shot from one direction.
Yeah.
You're running out of bullets. You haven't got the right weapon. Where you're looting next. Yeah, it kind of adds up as to why you're good at COD. If that makes sense.
Yeah. And so, we have all these tests. I end up submitting for that package, and you had to get like letters of recommendation, interview, that test, that other test that I mentioned. You had to get a health screening, all this stuff put together on top of your college resume, and your GPA and all that stuff. And I get selected. Thrilled, right? But then all of a sudden I'm getting shipped off, and I have no idea what I'm doing.
Wow. I know you're quite particular on what you divulge information. You don't want to go into it. So when you did get shipped off, are you able to say where you went, what your first place was, or?
No, I keep all that to myself, but I can't talk about like the training process. Okay. And the very first training process is a flight academy out in Pueblo, Colorado, called DOS Aviation. Okay. And that was kind of the make or break. There were a lot of other parts of the program of flight training that I went through where we lost. It was, significant. I wouldn't say a significant portion. We lost, a fair bit of guys that washed out of the program. But that was like the first one where, you're trying to learn all of this academically. Like I had no idea how much weather and science and engineering, and I thought I just want to go out there and fly the plane. Yeah. And to this day, you're studying engineering pubs about like how your plane works. That way, if something goes wrong, you can understand and assess the situation. And without getting into it, that was a mental grind. I bet. But the things I would do to go back. My only job there was to learn how to be a pilot and learn how to fly a plane full time. That's all it was.
And while you were doing all of that, I know obviously the IceMan Isaac and Top Gun, all that mix is blending in. Were you still being called Iceman during the aviation training? No, did you keep that one quiet?
I kept that super quiet. So, as I'm going through this training program, that is my only focus, 18 hours a day. And then I go to sleep and I wake up the next day. But, once I finish up that program, I'm waiting for my next flight school to start. And oftentimes you're waiting for other classes to finish, and then you can get pushed through the pipeline. But I would have 2-3 months where I would basically I would go help out a maintenance squadron for 4 or 5 hours a day just to, make sure I'm staying busy and I'm learning more about the operations. But then I would go home and I'm like, I got nothing to study for. I worked out today and I already showed the Air Force that I'm alive today. Well, time to play some video games. And Perfect. So I would play Overwatch for 6 hours every night or something. And my wife didn't get it and she hated it. And obviously there's a difference between binging video games and making content. It's two totally different things. But eventually I started to realize I'm pretty good at this. And I was climbing up the ranks. I was in top 500 of Overwatch. And then I got into a lobby and someone was like, bro, do you realize you're number 3 on the leaderboard? I'm like, what leaderboard? And there was a site that had rankings for every individual hero. And for the hero that I was playing, I was number 3 in the world.
Really?
Yeah, and it would take this complex algorithm of what your score per minute, what your win rate is, what's your KD, and there I was, IceMan Isaac, in the number 3 leaderboard position. I'm like,
so higher than any pro that was playing that champ as well at the time. You were top 3 in the world, including pros.
Well, so it was per platform. So I was playing on PlayStation. So and it was PlayStation and console were lumped, or PlayStation and Xbox were lumped together, and then PC was lumped together. Mm-hmm. I was still a console gamer. I was playing on PS4, but still, and I was playing a sniper, a guy named Hanzo, who at the time in the meta was the worst player. He got nerfed into oblivion. It was not a good player. If you were playing Hanzo, you were basically throwing. But I was putting up numbers, and ended up falling in love with it. I was that typical kid that would be Xbox record that, or if I would get the play of the game and I'd get a 5-man, I would hit the little PlayStation share button and save that clip. And so now all of a sudden this guy's gassing me up. I end up grinding. I hit the number 1 rank, and I've got this laptop that I was writing papers on in college that had no right editing whatsoever. And I'm just overclocking this thing. It's heating up my lap like while I'm trying to edit together a video on a free editing platform like Lightworks or something.
Okay, I've not heard of that one, but
I never bought Adobe Premiere because I'm like, I'll just buy a free editing platform.
There's no need to at that point, really, is there? So what, is that to upload to YouTube?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I uploaded my first montage to YouTube. I almost uploaded it with like a whole bunch of DMCA music. Like I'm talking cringe 2005, let the bodies hit the floor type of edit. And I'm like, nah, what if this does take off? Like maybe I can get some like AdSense revenue off of this, or maybe it'll take off, and throw on some non-DMCA music on there, and it went crazy.
Fair. So I'm curious then, before we jump into like when that all blows up, you mentioned Heather. Mm-hmm. Your now wife, is that correct?
Yep.
She wasn't too keen on you gaming when you were coming home from the Air Force. How did you get past that? Because I know that's a common problem in relationships. I myself had the same thing, so I just built a garage out the back, and I was I just disappeared at the garage and gamed.
No, I think that's fair. I think everyone has their own individual passions, their own individual hobbies, and you need to respect someone's private time, right? But at the same time, you need to be present as a husband. So, if I am gaming for 6 hours because that's something that I really, really want to do, it's only because my work commitments are less, and I'm still spending 2-3 hours with her cooking dinner together and like spending time together that evening. When you start getting into the content side, which we're on now, she now understands that this is business and this is work, and she actually works full time for me as my manager. It is a full up. We are fully committed to the business. But the biggest thing is communication and realistic expectations, right? From two sides, right? So one, if you're just gaming the game, I support you. As long as your family's taken care of, your job is taken care of, your house is clean, and you are present with your wife and your family, you deserve, a couple hours, an hour here or there. Like, everyone deserves their own personal time, whether it's in the gym, whether it's girls going shopping, gardening, whatever. Everyone's got their own thing that they're doing.
Yeah.
From a content side, you got to get buy-in. If you have people that rely on you, and you're working double time, which most creators blew up working double time, right? Ninja was working at Noodles and Company while also going to college, while also grinding competitive. Like Nick Merckx, Tim the Tapman, myself, all these guys that like, none of us just jumped into full-time content creation out of nowhere. We were taking care of ourselves, planning for, contingencies, and then we started growing. It was a huge buy-in from Heather to make all this possible. Because it's not like I could just say, hey, if I start making the right amount of money, I can quit the Air Force. I'm like, babe, I got 3-4 years before they'll even entertain the idea of letting me out of my contract early. And she was on board.
So you knew that from the start. So because I know you're making content for years. It's like 6 years or so now you've been doing it. Mm-hmm. And it was while you were still in the Air Force. So you even planned from there. It's like, right, my contract's got X amount of years left. Mm-hmm. Let's plan for it. Because that's something not a lot of people do, and they don't realize the grind and how long it actually takes to get that takeoff. Everyone thinks it's overnight success, but that's because you don't see the iceberg right below it. You just see the tip.
Yeah. I can't tell you how many people are like, oh, you just blew up because of the pandemic, or you just blew up because of Warzone. I'm like, no, I blew up on Overwatch, and then I had to commit to the Air Force again. And then I blew up on Blackout. I had a few videos that were going really well on Blackout, and then I had to full commit to the Air Force again. And like all of that time, I am learning how to edit my videos. I'm learning how thumbnails work. I'm learning the algorithm. I'm networking with creators. I'm becoming a better streamer. I'm perfecting my backdrop. I'm refining my audio. I'm like learning my lighting and cameras. And I'm creating this art over the 5 years that way, whenever that moment comes, I can strike.
Yeah.
And that's really what.
It seems as well that from a discipline perspective, I think you clearly got an awful lot of discipline throughout your life, whether it's trying to be a professional tennis player or just getting to the point where you can actually coach other people. Being in the Air Force itself, I imagine, is going to give you an awful ton of discipline. Leading into being a content creator, it is that discipline and that grind. Without it, you're never going to go anywhere unless you are that 1 in a million lucky shot or whatever. But yeah.
Right. Every here and there you'll see a creator, and I mean, they're grinders. One of the SCUF guys is Daltouche. Like, he literally just full degen grind Apex, but he was the number 1 in the world on wins, and he put in unbelievable amount of hours. And every here and there you'll see someone that gets the win and takes off just from grinding. but I don't want to take that away from Daltouche because he's also an incredible creator and is one of the funniest guys I've ever met. That guy is a true entertainer. So it's not just putting in ridiculous amounts of hours, because there are plenty of streamers who are streaming thousands of hours a year that do nothing to elevate their brand, and their content hasn't grown and their channels haven't grown. So it's not just, I always preface, you're not disciplined just because you're grinding.
You've got to be grinding in the right areas as well. Yeah.
Right.
Because like you said, you're right, actually. If you just do the same thing and you never change, practice. My rugby coach when I was younger always just taught us this. He would say, practice doesn't make perfect. Practice makes permanent. If you're practicing terrible, that's going to remain permanent. And you've got to be practicing.
I like that.
Constantly evolving. Yeah. And that works for the streaming, as you're saying, that if you just do the same thing, it ain't going to change. So let's take it back then through the console. So I know you're at a point now where you are able to get a little bit of revenue going from the stream. You haven't quit the Air Force yet, right?
Yep.
What consoles were you playing with at that point? What were you on?
So I was on PS4, and then after I made my first YouTube video, I built my first PC so I could do single stream PC. I was gaming on PS4, playing Blackout, and mainly Overwatch at the time. Even back then I was still doing coaching. I had the Overwatch and Learn. As instead of like the Warzone Academy, I had Overwatch and Learn, and I would like coach people how to play that. And then I would play Blackout, and I would play Apex, and I basically bought a PC that was good enough for me to stream on. So I would just use a capture card to stream off my PlayStation 4 and then game off of, or then stream off of my PC.
And then when did SCUF come into the picture? Was that before you went full time or after?
Way before I went full time. So I kind of took off with Overwatch, and that got me to about maybe 14,000 subscribers on YouTube. I was also trying to figure out like, okay, how do I work my way through and get myself on top? And I'm like, what's something really unique that I could do? And I started doing tech reviews. And so I would review like cameras. I would review my own gaming setup because I had like a pretty cool gaming setup with 2 PC setup with all the lighting and stuff. And I'm at TwitchCon in 2019. I end up seeing that guy over there, Ryan, through one of my Overwatch friends, back off my Janks, who's also with SCUF. And I really wanted a SCUF. And at the time, it wasn't something I had invested in yet. And I start seeing Ryan. I know exactly where it was, on top of this patio in San Diego. We're waiting in line for a beer, and I start grilling him. I start grilling about everything about SCUF, everything about the controller. What are they doing to improve? How are things getting better? What's the future plans? And then Janks, being a good wingman, he's like, hey, show him the video. And I end up showing Ryan my set of reviews, and somehow this guy with like 14,000 subs, which is still a great number, but a relative nobody in terms of like streamer, competitor, anything like that. And Ryan's like, screw it, send the kid a controller. And then I come out with this multi-platinum, B-roll expose, a review of this new controller, and it also took off. It got like, I don't know, probably like 200,000 views or something.
Yeah.
from a nobody who isn't like a tech reviewer. I had an opportunity with a brand that I really respected, and I had always wanted their controllers, and just did everything I could I can't tell you how many literal days it took me to shoot that. I would record it, and then the audio would be chalked. And I'm like, God dang it. And then I would record it, and there'd be something chalked with the video. And so I just kept re-recording it until I figured out basically how to be an amateur, very amateur, no disrespect to you guys, cinematographer to throw up this review on YouTube.
When I was doing the research on it, I sent over the PDF I put together and what we ran through before the podcast, and I sent it to Ryan, and Ryan came back with his notes, and he mentioned the video, and he said it was the best video that anyone had done to date as a creator for SCUF. So you did well.
My man.
But it's so important, though, for people to realize, like, when you are in that growth stage and a brand does give you that window of opportunity, you really do have to just bust the doors down and do it properly. Do it to every inch of ability you've got to put an output like that. Mm-hmm. Or else, like, you really don't want it enough, I would say.
Right. Well, and I was really, as much as I gassed up SCUF during it, I also ripped them apart on a couple things. I'm like, I was pulling out problems that fortunately were caught early in the engineering pipeline, because I got sent like a beta controller basically, and that helped out the brand. But I kept my integrity as a creator of saying like, this needs to be fixed in order for it to fully give my vouch, and it was fixed, immediately.
Yeah. So you've got the authenticity in there as well. So
yeah,
it's not as if you're just gassing someone up for the sake of it. It's like, no, I'm going to give my honest review here.
Exactly. You never want to sell out your own integrity for the sake of, a short-term income, a short-term hashtag ad. That's a whole different conversation that's a whole different rabbit hole we could go down.
So you did that. Obviously, you did the video. Don't know what the timeline is between then and when you actually got your own design, but I would love to jump into that. So tell us how that conversation was approached, first of all, and if you remember it well, and then let's actually jump into the design of the controllers.
Yeah, it was years. I reviewed the Vantage 2 back in, it was probably 2019, early 2020. They ended up, after they liked that review, they sent me out a Prestige, and I ended up reviewing that as well. And then it was a good 2-3 years. I didn't get my custom SCUF until late 2022.
Wow.
So it was like 3 years between me reviewing and then blowing up through Warzone. Now all of a sudden I'm not a tech review for them, but I'm this content creator and brand ambassador who used this controller for years, which is really nice, right? Yeah. It's not like they hit me up when I was skybound. They hit me up when I was just passionate about gaming.
Yeah, that seems to be a common theme. Ryan, again, who's off shot right now, seems to pick up the guys quite early on. Same with Joe. We did the pod with Joe, and I think Ryan jumped in on like 5 viewers and was like, we'll send this guy a controller, and saw it. And then the same thing, SCUF's been there kind of throughout. So it's really good as a brand to support people who they see the actual altitude that they've got, the potential that they have, right? So before you got the controller, you had like a creator code that you would use as well, because I know it's important for people watching who aspire to be streamers to know that there's different revenue options throughout.
Right.
But you had that, right?
Yeah, so I had the creator code, I had code Isaac, and I would do my best to create my own custom controller. So I would have like, a light blue controller with blue O-rings or black triggers or something like that to try to give as much as my own personal branding, because I always played with a hand cam, which was a great advertising tool for SCUF, but more than importantly, it was just for me flexing that I was a hybrid player, because I could play on both controller and keyboard and mouse, and so I'd basically be showing off what I had for that individual stream, what I was playing on.
That makes sense. So talk us through.
Yeah, but then when it came to design this thing, the main goal for me was to create something that wasn't about me, right? The entire Warzone Academy that I've built is not what I call egocentric content. It's not, look at me and look how incredible I am. Obviously, I have to put some stuff out there to show that like I can implement what I'm teaching and it pays off, right? But my whole goal, whether it was from teaching tennis to teaching pilots to teaching people how to play Warzone, it's always been about giving back. And so when I built this controller, I didn't want my branding to be super forward. I didn't want my logo to be the focus of it. I didn't want my face. I didn't want I really wanted this controller to be about the person that was wielding it, right? And so if you look down at the bottom left, you'll see the eagle eye logo, just very subtly down there, which is, what I've got on my hat, my shirt. It's my own personal brand. It kind of leads out to my aviation career. And then the eagle eye, like I'm always known for like spotting stuff in game. Like I could see like a little person running through a window from a mile away, and I'm like, there's a guy over there, and so that's kind of where that eagle eye comes from. And then on the lower right is the Academy A. That's the Academy. That's what we're all about. That's who we are as a community. And then from there, I've always just liked the retro, old school, cool type of vibes, and that's what brings in kind of this neon, hyperdrive, retro wave, old school, cool type of vibes of going down a road and like leading towards the sunset.
It gives me synthwave vibes.
Yeah.
I listen to a lot of like 80s music. I love Time Cop. Like it's giving me that vibe. Yeah. So I'm glad to hear that that's what you designed in mind, because that's what it gives me.
Exactly. And then it, just as I hold it, just kind of the parts of my palm that are covering, you can see a little bit of the mountaintops coming over as you're playing it and as it sits on my hand cam. But against my black mouse pad, you have this bright blue controller that just screams. And even if it's just sitting there on your, on your coffee table, it's like that thing screams at you from across the room, which I've always really liked, just how vibrant the colors are.
I love it. And I love the bumpers that are white as well on there. That's what I would go with. And the same with the D-pad. Always the white D-pad and the buttons. Rate it highly.
I feel bad for the team that helped me design it, because I was every little detail. There were certain polygons in the mountains. I'm like, you got to change this. And so I think we actually delayed my SCUF launch by like 3 months, because it was like, okay, Isaac, we need you to submit a final design, or we're gonna have to bump another creator up in your spot, and you're gonna be pushed back 3 months. I'm like, I'll wait.
It's got to be right.
It's got to be right. Yeah.
Fair enough. Well, it came out beautiful, so
I appreciate
the process worked.
The team killed it. The team absolutely killed it.
So during that, like you say, you wanted to make sure it was for the academy. We haven't touched on that just yet, because I know that is a major part of your brand, and a lot of the content that blew up for you was when you were teaching other people how to play COD and what they're looking for.
Yeah.
And I do believe that seems to come from all your ability to cross-check within the Air Force. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Let's dive into that a little bit, and the type of content that you made, and when that was, because I believe, was it during COVID when a lot of that stuff was going on?
Yeah. So I was kind of having that conversation with the wife in late 2019 of like, hey, I see a potential with making content. Like, I had a little blow up with Overwatch. I had a little blow up with Blackout both times. I didn't give it my all because I had to focus on what was important, right? I can't be the new guy at a squadron and be lacking on my flying. I can't be a new guy in the schoolhouse and have bad performance in flights. Like, that would destroy my career. So I had to shut it down and focus up. So then we're heading into late 2019. I'm hearing about, all right, I'm hearing Valorant is coming out, and I'm also hearing rumors about a leaked Call of Duty Battle Royale, and I really liked Blackout. And so then I basically started building from there. I decided, I want to do Warzone because I grew up playing COD. It's also cross-platform. It's also more than likely going to be free to play. And so I'm like, okay, there's a huge base here. And I had to devise a content strategy. So I started building thumbnail assets months before Warzone released. I started, planning for how I would teach people through these top-down little artist renditions of like sight lines and buildings. And I started planning for all of that months ahead of time, because I knew the best content that I could give would be giving value, right? Rather than, because even just long-term, man, like, you can only gas yourself up for so long. Like, where does that passion come from after a certain point of like, look how good I am? That has to get old at some point, right?
100%.
But when I've got someone coming in my chat and he's like, hey man, I learned so much from you. My son used to hate playing with me because he would be carrying me so hard. But now we've really bonded over Warzone because I'm getting better and better, and I'm hanging with him, and we're like, our relationship.
That's special.
Right? Like that's going to wake me up in the morning. And so I just think there's a lot more.
I never thought about it that way, actually. Like, when I was looking through, I never would assume, like, yes, a parent, like someone in their 30s, 40s, who's like, oh, I need to relate to my son, and all he's doing is gaming, but I can't actually keep up with it.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, they find IceMan Isaac on YouTube, and they're like, wait a minute, I could follow these steps and get good.
Yeah.
And almost pass that information on to their son. So your analytics must be a little bit higher than the usual skew, which is strong.
For sure. Average age of most YouTuber, like, viewers for Call of Duty is going to be in the low 20s. Mine's in the high 20s, low 30s.
That's good. That's a good unique selling point as well as a creator in general. That's sick.
Yeah. I mean, it works out great from the brand perspective. I mean, even like SCUF, honestly, people at this age are going to, like, we're men. We're grown men. We got disposable income. If we're passionate about something, we can invest in it. It makes things a lot easier when I'm in Twitch chat, because I'm also talking to adults. I'm not talking to kids. Obviously, like, there's nothing wrong with being younger, right? I've been gaming since I was a kid, but it does bring apart a little bit more of a mature audience, for sure. Yeah.
So you were making content that's teaching people how to be better at COD, the Academy. I love it. Okay. So what was the skills that you learned predominantly in the Air Force that you applied? Is there a set lessons that you had that transferred straight over, or is it just generic?
They kind of built off each other, right? So like the same skills when I was talking about that TBAS, the test of basic aviation skills, where I'm, killing it on this multitasking, is what I grew up with. But now when I start to become a pilot, now every day I'm harnessing those skills, because so much of aviation is about what's called your cross-check, which is constantly your ability to be looking at all of these instruments within your cockpit to maintain level flight, maintain your airspeed, stay on navigation, and accomplish the mission without getting too into it, and constantly having that multitasking, as well as the communication. And you were always told about the 3 C's of aviation: clear, concise, correct, right? You need to be clear, You need to be quick about it, and you're not going to be giving, wrong comms. So if you're like, on your left, but it's on your right, that's incorrect, right? And so I'm training that every single day while I'm flying, and then I go home and I'm doing the exact same thing while I'm in comms in game. And while I may not be known for being one of the best mechanically talented, and I got the gunny, I do all right, but like across the scene, like I am respected as being one of the best IGLs in-game leads because I keep my head, an entire firefight can be going on, and I'm thinking, 30, 45 seconds in advance about, okay, where are the potential third parties coming from? Where do I need to rotate? Where do we need to disengage? When do we need a hard commit?
Yeah.
And that's led to a lot of success.
So when you're playing Warzone then, because that's something that when I play with my mates, we don't go to that level, and that's why I'm evidently not very good at the game compared to someone like yourself. So you need that one person in the squad who is calling the shots, essentially, that IGL, like you said, the in-game lead.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice when you're playing with two people and you can just kind of let them off the leash and they're going crazy in a gunfight and you're in there in the mix with them, and you don't want to be a dominant IGL, right? Because people are always getting good piece of information. I could be playing with someone like Joe Woe, who's mechanically a demon and may not be the best IGL, but I need to respect when he gives a call out that he may have additional information that I don't have. So it's also not having that pride. But I think the biggest thing is trust.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm playing with a team and I say, we need to rotate right now, or we need to push this building right now, I expect every single one of them to full send with me. And if we die, we debrief after and we say like, hey, we trusted the call. This is why it was wrong. But more than likely what ends up happening is someone says, hey, we need to do this now. And then they start bickering. And then two people on the team go and two people on the team stay. And all of a sudden they're split and you're dead no matter what.
Yeah.
Right? And so there will be times where I'm playing with someone where they will make an IGL call. Right? They'll make a snap call. And I will have my full faith in them. Right? Obviously, there's talking about it in the moment. You're sitting in a building. Okay, what do we do next? We're back and forth. Okay, this could happen. This could happen. But when someone says go, you go. And you debrief after. I see so many teams missing that.
Such good advice, because I play with my squad and we do that all the time. You're right. Every time it leads to a failure. And you'll just bicker afterwards and be like, guys, can we just listen to each other?
Yeah.
And if someone says it, let's do it. So, okay, I'm glad to hear that. We know where we're going wrong there. So let's say we listen to the entire academy. I've watched every single YouTube video that you've ever done, right?
Okay.
I've got all the information possible. Tell me why the SCUF is going to give you that additional edge over the top of a standard or like a stock controller.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just ergonomics for what we've been missing with standard controllers for the last 2 decades, right? We have 5 digits on each hand, and the way we build our current controllers is to really just only utilize our thumbs. And then, maybe our trigger fingers on top. So we're using basically 40% of what our digits could be doing, right? Because we have these other 3 fingers that largely are on the back are doing absolutely nothing. So when you have that ergonomics, it's going to allow you to do things like when I jump, I don't need to take my hand off of my aim to jump, right? So I can jump and swing a corner and constantly be tracking perfectly around that corner until I see my target and I lock onto that target and then I finish the gunfight. As opposed to I sprint, I jump, I turn, or the exact same thing, if I ever had to like slide and challenge someone, I say that and my brain has already started to press the paddle. That's how I associate, right? I don't think of these face buttons anymore. I think of paddles on the back because they're remapped to what you have on the back. And so it just allows for more dynamic gameplay in order to slide and jump and dive and jump and constantly be tracking, because the most important thing in FPS, obviously, is your aim and your centering. And if you can't be centering while you're moving, then you're costing yourself, especially in a game that we play right now, man. The time to kill is just so fast. There's a reason why, SCUF is a sponsor of the Call of Duty League, why all the pros are using a SCUF or some form of custom control. It's because we need that advantage in the game.
It's funny the way you were describing that there, and you're saying like you're focusing on all these things. It reminded me back earlier in the conversation when you were talking about the flight training. Yeah. You had to be doing the maths questions. You had someone calling out with the comms, and it was like, you wouldn't be able to do all of that if you couldn't control the pedals and do the maths thing at the same time, right?
Right.
So it's the same as that. Why would you not? So how do you actually map it then? So for yourself, obviously do you just put all 4 of those buttons on the back for you, or do you mix it up?
Not quite. So the ones that are the most like ergonomic and easy to use are going to be the outside paddles. So one of them is mapped to slide. The other one is mapped to jump. So my far left paddle is slide, and then my far right paddle is jump. Because I used to play claw, which is where you would bring your front finger over, and it's
Carpal tunnel syndrome.
wicked uncomfortable. Like, I'm already feeling the results of it, and I'm only 29. And so I'm just used to having jump associated with my right hand, because that's what I would play, especially when I played Overwatch, is I would be, jumping and shooting people, or I would be playing Pharah, and you constantly have to like press the bumper to maintain your boosters. And so for me, jump is always on the right hand. So right paddle is jump, left paddle is slide. And then these two center paddles, one of them I have mapped to reload, because you're reloading after every single gunfight. Obviously you could come up off the paddle. The other one is...
That makes sense on the inside, because it's easy just to flick.
The other one, actually, a lot of people, I don't see enough people doing, is up on the D-pad. Up on the D-pad on Warzone is ping, right? So I can be in the middle of the gunfight and then just reach up there and press that paddle while not interfering with either of my thumbs, which are, your left thumb in aiming is just as important as your right, because you need to be counter strafing while you're aiming. So now I'm able to like do all those things at once. L2 to aim in, R2 to shoot, left thumb or right thumb to aim, left thumb to strafe, and now I can press this button right here
to ping.
That's
so I
can
such a militant approach as well, because you're thinking about the rest of your team. It's like, I'm going to use one of my buttons to give information to everybody else. Yeah, so that's why you're a good IGL. As opposed to switching weapons.
Exactly.
Selfishness. Yeah. I like that. Okay, that's a cool way to map it. I would never have thought about putting ping on the back.
Well, it's because while I'm switching weapons, I really don't need to aim too much, right? So like I can either just go up to triangle, or like clawing on these two controllers, or X and Y, or like triangle and square isn't bad. Clawing on these, that's when things get really rough. Yeah. So that's what makes a lot more sense.
The claw, I tried it. For me, it actually just hurts. Point blank, so you gotta have those paddles, to be honest. Do you use the hairs or full triggers?
Oh yeah, digital triggers for sure. Yeah. So like this build right here, this is exactly how I have my build. So I have the digital triggers, which allow you to have like, I don't know if you can hear it inside of here, like a really fast mouse click. So if you're using single fire guns, and then I also like the reflex personally more than the Xbox, because occasionally when you got to get really twisted, sometimes you are using all four of your paddles, and I'll pull up and I'll do a little bit of the double claw, which isn't too bad to do occasionally. But if you're doing that every single moment, especially like there are people, I think Scump does it. I think he plays claw, and he was slide canceling with claw. Like, I'm getting gunned. Yeah. I could not slide cancel with claw while also aiming. The paddles are just so much easier.
Some people are just built different though with it. Like, Scump's a good example.
Yeah.
It's a shame he's retired, actually, as well. Obviously, we get to see more content out of him, which is great. But we're here for the Optic Major this weekend. We're not going to see him on stage competing, which is it's always a shame. It's like not watching Ronaldo football when you had that opportunity.
Yeah,
you're going to want to see those guys perform.
Well, that's. I feel like a lot of people are retiring, and a lot of people are switching off the game right now, and that's a whole different state of the game. Like, ooh.
Go into it. Go do it.
How do we make a game that's supposed to be Scump's swan song? This is his final season playing one of the most anticipated games in the history of Call of Duty. And he makes it through one major, and he has to retire. Like, he can't even make it to his Dallas major 2 majors later to retire. And obviously there's own personal considerations, and I'm not saying Infinity Ward is the reason he retired, but I understand a lot of people don't like this game as a pro. And it sucks to see. We're kind of in a weird spot with COD right now.
Yeah, I mean, the viewership speaks for itself, right? That's kind of all you really need to look at. And other games like Hogwarts Legacy comes up and does steal a lot of the viewership and even the player base a lot. If a game like that comes out, you're going to jump ship if the current game you're grinding isn't up to par.
Yeah.
And we've seen that throughout the years with COD. I myself have dipped in and out. Call of Duty 3 was the first one I jumped on and went through all the Modern Warfare, Black Ops, and then I cut at Advanced Warfare because I just didn't like it. I'll be honest, I didn't like the movement. I didn't like the space shoots, the jumping and whatever. I came back at Warzone. And that is also the beautiful thing about the state of the game. It's always in flux. It's always changing. So right now it's at a bit of a trough. We could argue for sure.
Yeah.
But what do you think needs to be done to fix it, to get it out of that?
Yeah, so I think first off, I want to mention that, a lot of people say, well, it's just we're out of the pandemic. People are getting back to their jobs. Like, that's BS. Like, Counter-Strike Global Offenses have seen its global peak lifetime. That game's been out for over a decade, right? Apex has seen its peak right? It's a battle royale, so it's not like battle royales are dying. Fortnite, it's seeing its viewership and gameplay peak in recent months. Like, so it's clearly not an issue of battle royales or pandemic or people playing. It is the state of the game.
Yeah.
100%. And a lot of that plays into, there are complex issues to be solved, right? Like cheaters. Like anti-cheat is very tough. A lot of people are going to be going through it, and unfortunately, that's going to be something that we're fighting for the rest of our history of FPS gamers.
Yeah.
Unless we go full up like what South Korea does, where they have you like in order to play online video games, you associate your government ID with your account.
No way. I didn't know that.
So
let's not do that though. I feel like
but I mean, the unique thing about it is there's no creating new accounts. There's no creating burner accounts to cheat on. So if you get cut, it's like a VAC ban, but for all of online gaming.
I see the positives to that, but then, for example, with me, I do play a little bit of League, play a bit of Valorant, and I like being able to play with my friends who are really good at it, and without their Smurf accounts, I'd be in the bin.
Well, I don't know how that would be associated. I'm not advocating for that. I'm just saying that's like, we would have to do something extreme to solve it, right? So then let's focus about, people aren't leaving Warzone because of the cheaters. They may vent about the cheaters on top of everything, but the big thing that I always emphasize, we could have more LTMs, we could have new maps, we could have better items in the cosmetic shop. But at the end of the day, when we're in the map, what we're feeling every day is our hands connected to controllers, our hands connected to the keyboard and mouse. When we're playing the game, do I feel like I can express myself as a player through the movement, through the guns? And right now, it's just like, I've mentioned this before. I literally had a controller on stream the other day. I took duct tape. I duct taped my finger and duct taped it to the back of the controller to where I was holding L2 for an entire game. So from the second that I was dropping in, when I pulled my chute and I unpulled my chute, I was already aiming down sight my little starter pistol. I was aimed down sight the entire game. I won my very first game with my finger duct taped to the controller, holding L2, in what is supposed to be a fast-paced FPS.
Yeah.
We went from something that was so dynamic, and especially towards the end of Caldera, was so rewarding for player creativity and player progression, and now we're turning it into like an aim-down sight simulator. And there's still moments where you can go crazy and you can still pull off some insane movement and breaking cameras, but it's so much more difficult and it's so much more rare now that...
So that skill gap's closing in, really. So you can't actually perform to a point where you are leaps and bounds above anybody else. Like the pros have now basically got this window to be better instead of way large. Is that accurate to say?
And it's just... I feel like as a developer, right, you should be wanting players to push your game to the next level.
Yeah.
You want to see them utilizing your incredible guns with amazing sounds and animations. You want to see them utilizing your movement engine to create all of this content that is basically a giant hashtag ad of like, wow, look at all, it's like the whole only in Battlefield, right? You remember all those ads, and it was just all this incredibly creative, fun stuff. And now we're the most grounded and restricted that we've ever been. And it's like, I legitimately struggle sometimes to like click start streaming and like start playing this game, because I just know like, okay, I'm going to aim down sight an LMG all day, and I'm going to get gunned by a fire shotgun, and then a bomb drone's going to come over and finish me.
That's not good. That's not where we want to be as a game.
I feel like we're heading in the right direction.
Okay.
There has been a shift. Right? They got rid of the 2v2 gulag. They added sprinting while plating. I just don't want them to tiptoe in the right direction. We need to sprint in the right direction.
Yeah.
Swallow your pride, whatever it is, squash whatever's going on internally, and just, because it's not just players, like, it's not just sweats, right? And I'm not even like the sweat, right? I have the academy. I am an advocate for average players. Globally, people are leaving the game en masse. Wow. And we can see that not only through Steam player charts, but also through the increase of things like Apex and Fortnite out of nowhere. Got to get their players from somewhere. Yeah.
So suppose then, if we identified now, like you say, is that the game isn't in the best state of Call of Duty as it is right now. So let's run it back then through what your favorite CODs were. And if you could pick any of those engines and those games to bring back into the modern day, what would they be and why?
So I'm a little different, right? Because a lot of people in the COD scene are like OG multiplayer guys. Yeah. And like I was too. I was playing all the way back in Big Red 1 and then played all the way through. I think the Call of Duty that I bought last before I took a break from Call of Duty, I think was Ghosts.
Okay.
Was Ghosts the one where they had the dog?
So Ghosts, I know it because at the time I was grinding zombies hard, and they pulled in like this weird alien zombies vibe on Ghosts. So that I know that was that game.
Yeah. All I remember is like I remember enjoying Advanced Warfare. I thought jetpacks were cool. I liked advanced movement. There was one where like the biggest feature that they had for that game was like the dog. And that was like in all of their marketing material, and like that was something they were super excited about. But then the campaign sucked. The multiplayer was boring. It was lacking features. And for some reason, that was like, all right, whatever. I'm done with this $60 every year thing. Like it was just uninspired. It was just really uninspired. But I tell you what brought me back into Call of Duty was Blackout. I did not buy Black Ops 4 to play Black Ops 4. Couldn't care less about the multiplayer. I wasn't following the CDL. Scump, Celium, Nadeshot. I didn't grow up watching these guys. I had no idea who they were. But that's what brought me back into it, and that's what made me fall in love with Call of Duty again. Was Blackout.
Battle Royale.
Battle Royale.
Did you play Battle Royale before that, or was that your first Battle Royale as well?
I played PUBG. I was too late on the H1Z1 train, but I played PUBG, and I saw the Fortnite blow up, and I really enjoyed Blackout.
And would you say that Blackout was your favorite, or moving into Warzone 1 with Verdansk? Where you're at? Where's your head at with those?
I mean, Verdansk obviously is what blew up my channel and what I have so many memories in, and it's what really people started to learn who IceMan Isaac was, right? And I have such a love for that game, but I think one of the things that Blackout did well was it had better movement, so fluid with the movement, whether it was, parachute or squirrel diving off of high grounds. You had the grapple gun. You had really smooth slides. I wasn't even slide canceling or doing anything crazy, but it was a longer time to kill. And I think the biggest thing about that time to kill was recoil was tougher to control, and there were also limited magazine capacities. You didn't have loadouts, so not everyone had the large extended mag. And on top of that, like, you know when you're playing Apex and you pick up an R99 or you pick up a car and you one-clip someone, it's like, oh my God, dude, I just one-clipped that guy. Like, it's such a rare thing, even at like the medium to high levels, that like, wow, I just one-clipped that guy. Switch to Warzone 2, I pick up a Seiken with a 100-round default mag, and I've got a 100-round LMG, or I pick up a fire shotty that kills in 2 shells, and you can carry 25 shells. You can get 12 downs in a single mag.
That's just not right. That's 2 CDL equivalent. That's what it is. I think that's for me where you're right with the Blackout. That you actually get those interesting fights that can last like half a minute up to a minute sometimes, depending on what you're doing and what cover you've got. But now you've got half a second.
Yeah,
max.
I remember seeing a clip of Black Ops 4. It was like Celium versus Scump in a 1v1. And like there was time for my heart rate to raise in the middle of one gunfight as I'm watching, and they're either, kind of like snaking back and forth and shouldering back and forth, and the time to kill is longer. And then, oh my God, he won the fight. But like right now, like the Vaznev's literally a shotgun. Like people are dying in an instant. Like I don't know why we're not allowing players to express their accuracy, their movement, their outplay, their creativity, and it's just like, zap, you're dead.
So what would you pick then if you could have any era in the game to bring back to right now? What would it be?
Oh, I won't speak to multiplayer because I'm not a multiplayer guy. I really enjoyed playing Vanguard because I liked Dead Silence being a perk. It allowed people to move around the map, and there was a larger skill gap outside of just cranking your headset. Everyone was dead silent, and you had to understand the timings. You had to understand the rotations and the possible flanks that people could be making. That made a really dynamic experience, whereas right now in Modern Warfare 2, it's sitting there waiting in a corner. Oh, I'm sorry. Sitting there waiting in a corner and waiting for your dead silence to pop. And on top of that, dead silence takes 3 or 4 seconds to pop, which is annoying in itself, and you make a sound when you're popping your dead silent.
That's so counterintuitive. Like,
yeah. You pull out your walkie-talkie and so, I mean, yeah, I would enjoy something going back to a Treyarch or a Sledgehammer. Just allow for a longer time to kill, more player creativity. That's really all it comes down to, because that's what's exciting. For Warzone, I think End of Caldera was really nice. The team at Raven took the game in its worst spot ever and really brought it into something incredible by the end. They added additional 50 HP, which over like 75% of the community wanted. They added things like speed boost across the map, which made things more dynamic for looting, because now I can loot faster, or I can just absolutely camera the ever-living crap out of someone because I can slide and I can move. I don't enjoy slide canceling. That hurts my hands all day, even with the SCUF. Like if I'm playing for 8 hours a day and I'm, circle, circle X, circle, circle X, circle, like that gets annoying. But I did enjoy the skill gap that brought to a gunfight. But you don't need a slide cancel to have a skill gap, right? We could have a skill gap with what we have in Modern Warfare 2. Just make it to where when I jump, there's not a penalty for aiming down sight. Maybe allow me to B-hop like we could in the beta. When I dive and I dolphin dive in Modern Warfare 2, I take a little nap and then I can aim down sight. There's like, it's just so sluggish and unintuitive, and like, this game is savable. It's just whether or not they'll swallow their pride and shift.
I was going to say, if you compare it to Caldera when that first came out, like, there is that hope that they can turn it around. We will see. So before we kind of come to a close, 'cause I know we've been going for nearly an hour now, I believe. I did want to take it back to the Air Force. You said that you don't like to divulge what equipment you flew on.
Yep. I mean, I can say what I want. I really like to make a clear delineation between what I did in my professional career and what I'm doing in my different professional career. I just really, I want to be a good role model for the thousands of military creators that are out there, right? And there's a reason you haven't seen a picture of me in uniform. There's a reason why I don't talk about what I do on a day-to-day military life. Not only is it good for the military as a whole in terms of operational security, but I want people to value you for your content, not for my service.
That's admirable, and although a lot of people would use that as an advantage, because I don't think there's anything wrong with if you did do that. To be honest, I think but I respect the fact that you haven't used that to elevate your brand, and it's just shown that as a creator standalone how good you truly are with it. So I admire that, and congratulations.
And there's still
on the
opportunities. Thank you. That really means a lot. And there's still opportunities from people who are in the military to be formally acquainted, right? Like I was captain of the Air Force team on 2 separate occasions, but I never once had to push myself out there as an Air Force member to get that opportunity. Yeah. Right. So your actions speak for yourself. Your content speaks for itself. Don't let the uniform. Not only is that literally illegal to use your status as a federal employee to benefit your personal business, but as your integrity as a creator, right? Let that speak for itself.
Speaking on the future, what is the future for IceMan Isaac, your brand, the academy? What have you got planned? I know you're quite freshly full-time.
Finding the balance of being full-time is definitely a new experience, right? I went from having no balance whatsoever. My balance was basically forced on me, where I was working for 9 hours a day. I would come home and I would have to stream, and I'd have to shoot a YouTube video. I'd have to work with my sponsors, and also I'd have to be a good husband. And now it's like, I just got an additional 8 hours a day. And so finding balance is kind of tough, but I'm excited to continue growing the academy. I think ranked with Warzone is going to be really good for the academy and for our content of teaching people how to get better. Because after a while, they might see like, oh crap, maybe SBMM was helping me a little bit, and I'm hard stuck in gold. All right, how do I get better? How do I get out of this rank? And then you might start, checking out the academy of like, okay, I sent in my footage to Isaac, and he's right. I may have good gun skill, but my positioning sucks, or my comms might suck, and I can start reviewing content with people in their comms as they try to go through the ranks.
There's a measure now as well, like you say, with the ranked, you can actually say, right now, before looking at the academy, I am X. Yeah. Do a couple of weeks of the academy, and where am I now? And you will be at Y, which will be X plus whatever. Yeah. I'm going to give that a go. Yeah. I actually will. We need to get back in COD, we were saying, so we can actually get a little bit more grounded when we're talking about all the SCUF content. So I'm going to watch your videos, and I'll let you know how to improve. Okay. I'll look forward to it. So I got to send some footage. I got to get Ryan. I don't even know if this guy knows if this guy plays video games, man. I got to see some footage of this Ryan
guy.
Was ex-pro.
I think we talked about this. How long ago was this? That was ex-pro. Ex-pro? Yeah. What title were you pro on? Modern Warfare 2? Black Ops 1, Black Ops 2, and Ghost. What was your call sign? Or your Fatalize? Yeah. It was like me, Ace, Merc. Wait, really? Yeah. Do you have like a mural in your? Do you have like a bedroom of all your trophies and medals? Okay, we gotta break those out sometime. We'll get some beers tonight. And we'll start living back the nostalgia. I'm gonna interview you at dinner tonight. So there we go. Yeah.
On that then, we had a question earlier. We were talking about the different CODs throughout, and Isaac was saying one of them was focused around a dog and all the marketing campaigns. Do you remember which COD that was? Which That's what
there was like one COD where basically like the big feature was like the new AI for like the dog, and that was like one of like the biggest marketing assets that they were. And then I played the game, and the game was just like really yeah. I think.
Or was it the campaign where you control the dog in the campaign?
I think it was the campaign where you could.
No, it was also multiplayer.
But it was also, was it the same thing? I think it was Ghosts.
It was a high kill.
I don't know. I just remember playing it, and I was giving COD another chance, and I was just like, yeah, okay, I'm so sick of multiplayer, like 6v6. I don't think there was ranked, and so now I'm just playing pubs, and I was just bored. But like Battle Royale, it was Ghosts, yeah.
Yeah, you were right then. Yeah, you assumed it was Ghosts, to be fair. Yeah.
You think it was the best? Yeah? I don't know. I just got bored of 6v6. Maybe because I didn't have friends that were like passionate or like at my level, or I just got bored of playing TDM.
I rated it for like I said, I was a zombies guy, and I played the Alien Invasion equivalent, and that was actually solid. Me and my brother would grind that every night after school, and it took us weeks to complete it. So I respected the game for that. You don't find that anymore. Games are too easy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So. All right. Well, we've been doing over an hour. I'm conscious of your time. I know we're all going to have a dinner tonight. So, Isaac, thank you very much for coming on the SCUF podcast.
Absolute blast. Thanks for having me.
Congratulations on all your success so far. Being a full-time content creator is a very wild landscape. And, 2023, the fact that you can do that is amazing. So, it's well done. And I look forward to seeing what you're going to bring to the table next.
Yeah, big thanks to come. Thanks for having us.